There are teachers who had that same exact story. I'm so passionate about teaching. I have this why. I feel like God called me to this work. I feel like this is how I'm gonna make my impact on the world. And I get into it, and you know, more than 50% of new teachers don't even make it past year 5. So I get into it. So talk to me more about how you were feeling when you said, I don't wanna work anymore.
And not feeling adequate and not feeling like you're doing enough. I remember a specific client where I just felt like I wasn't doing enough for her. I mean, it was always the yelling, the screaming, the cursing at me, you know, and I think that's what caused me to say, I think enough is enough. Like, am I helping? Am I doing anything, you know, right? And I really felt like I wasn't making an impact or a difference anymore.
Looking back on it, do you think it was the right decision?
No, I don't think it was the right decision because I'm back at it now, right? I just feel like I wasn't fulfilling that purpose and I was getting that itch again to go back and do the work.
People don't necessarily think about that side of it when they're in the moment thinking of, I gotta leave. Because they're thinking, I'm frustrated right now, I'm annoyed right now, I'm stressed right now, I'm burnt out right now, let me go. These questions you need to ask before you decide whether or not to quit. Number 1. Welcome to New Teacher Big Impact, the podcast, where we help new teachers have a big impact on student achievement data without burning out, feeling unsupported, or changing who they are. And today, I have a super special guest, somebody who is killing it in the social work industry, was Social Work of the Year last year, doing fantastic work. My first person on the podcast who is not an educator, but is gonna be super valuable tonight. Also, the first person on the podcast who is my wife. This is my wife, Shakira Williams. Appreciate you being here tonight.
Sure.
Let's do it. So I know that you are not an educator. You know this podcast is New Teacher, Big Impact, helping new teachers have a big impact. But you have a very interesting situation where you recently left the job that you're working. And I think a lot of teachers, they get to a space where they don't know if like, this is for me anymore. Should I leave? Should I quit? Should I stay? I know for me, it's always February. And I know social work is different. So anytime we're not aligned, just let me know. But social work is different because you guys, obviously a year round. But for us, in February for me, it's a lot of the time where I started thinking about next year and if I want to stay in this role, if I want to change schools, if I want to quit the profession, if I want to go to admin, if I want to try a different grade level. I started thinking about that in like February because, you know, we're getting ready for June, end of the year, and then, you know, August. So do you guys have a similar type of cycle in social work?
So no, because as you said, I think we go year round, but I think the part where we get excited is when school's out. School's not in session anymore because we don't get as many cases. So, you know, the kids are usually at home for the summer and, you know, things are pretty low around summertime. So I would say like June and July are probably our like slower months and we kind of get like a reprieve. So. Okay.
That's because teachers are the people that recommend, or what's it called? Report. Mandated reporters. So the teachers always, you know, this student, what do you hear from the social work standpoint? What do you hear teachers reporting? What if I told you that the principles that are being taught in this video could be taught to your school community live and in person? Well, the answer is yes. I'm Daryl Williams Jr., and you know that I'm on a mission to help 1 million students be able to live the life that they choose, not the life they're forced to settle for. And I do that by empowering new teachers to have a big impact on student achievement data without burning out, without feeling unsupported, and without changing who they are. So if there's a message that I can empower your students, your staff, your school community with, I would love to pop up in person and make that happen and provide massive value for your school community. Check the link in the description below to fill out a booking form, and somebody from the team will get back to you about how we can work together. Do you hear teachers reporting?
Yeah, so sometimes we hear teachers reporting students are not coming to school, truancy issues. We also see students coming to school and some of them complaining of not being able to eat and not having those types of things. So, but mainly we see a lot of truancy and like absenteeism. And then when they're in school, we do see a lot of behavior reports as well. They call us because the children are having behaviors and they expect us to work a miracle with the parents to...
No, not they. Don't talk about they. Like,
the teachers.
We are teachers.
Sorry. You teachers expect us to make things happen. And most of the time we do. We try to,
Yeah. So what made you go into social work instead of education? I'll tell my side of the story, but I want you to tell your side of the story first. Because obviously you are a social worker and doing an awesome job. I remember You were excited about that award last year. So what caused you into social work instead of like anything else?
Yeah, so I'd say, growing up, I used to see social workers come in, I talk to you about this a lot, but I would see social workers coming in and out of my home. We had a huge family, and so it was my grandmother, my aunt, my mom, myself, my siblings. And so social workers just coming in and out all the time just to kind of check up on us. And so I saw that and I was like, I really wanted to just, I guess, I looked at social workers as kind of like as scary people, them coming in and...
They scared you?
They scared me, yeah. They scared me. And so I looked at them as not friendly people. And so I guess I wanted to change that for the other children who see us as... We're not scary. We don't just take children, And so, not that anyone took us or no one took us out of our homes, but, when they did come into the homes, they would ask us questions and things like that. And we'd, it wasn't comfortable. So I wanted to be a social worker to, I guess, turn things around and be that comfortable social worker for somebody.
Got you. It's crazy. I don't know if I ever asked you that before because...
I don't think so.
The why that I got into education is super similar. I always talk about the fact that I always felt inadequate as a student, not necessarily academically. Academically, I was fine, but I felt like I didn't fit in, never found my people to connect with. And I just feel like there should have been some teacher along the way that connected with me. Like I always feel like that. I always tell you, I know I tell you this, I can't think of a teacher that I can look back and say, man, that teacher changed my life. Man, that teacher impacted me. So the reason why I became a teacher was because I wanted to make sure that everybody had somebody in the building that loves, cares for, and supports them. And I'm gonna be that person. So the fact that you saw social workers and it made you feel afraid, you're like, wow, I wanna be a social worker and not bring fear to people.
Right, yeah.
It's kind of similar. Okay, maybe we were meant to be or something.
Maybe.
But did you ever think about education?
Funny. So I honestly, I never saw myself as an educator.
Lie. Stop lying.
I never saw myself as an educator.
Don't lie to the people.
When we went to Oakwood, I wanted to be in your class and I wanted to be around you even more. And so I went into education for some reason. That caused me to be at Oakwood for 5 years.
Wait, I don't think people really understood that. Let's break it down. So what you're saying is you came in, hold on, let me see. So you came in as a freshman.
Came in as a freshman.
You were smitten by love. And I was an education major. So you made your major education so that we could have the same classes. Is that what you're saying?
Now that you put it like that, okay.
Yes or no? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I guess you can
right.
call it that. Call it that.
I remember I like that. We used to get we didn't get in trouble, but we used to talk in class.
We used to talk in class. We used to meet after class.
But then the semester I went to Argentina, and you realized that you were in education classes without me. You were like, I don't really like this education thing.
Right.
And that's when you changed your major.
Correct.
To social work. Ended up staying an extra year, which is fine. A lot of people do that too. But honestly, the reason I wanted to bring that up, one, to tell that story, but two, because I think there's some overlap there between social work and education, where some people are thinking, man, which path should I go down? Do I want to be in the schools where I'm a teacher, helping students on academically and grow social emotionally, or do I want to be a social worker and help them more in-home? Because I know you do more in-home therapy, or you did when you started your career. So I know that there's many, many, many different ways to impact people. And I always tell teachers, I always want people to live the life that they choose, not the life they're forced to settle for. Even if they initially decided, I'm going to be a teacher. There are so many different ways you can impact the world, so many different ways you can impact students, children, the youth. And if for some reason education is not it, maybe it's okay to try something else. So I like to expose people to different ideas. And I love that you, at an early age, when we were 18, 19 years old, you were like, whoa, I don't actually like education. What was it about? What was it about education that you were like, nah, I don't want to stay in these classes?
I honestly can't even pinpoint it, why I didn't like education.
You just missed me. That's crazy.
That is weird, right?
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
You just couldn't be in classes without me? What?
Education never really interested me, but I did want, I think coming in, I was like, yeah, I got to be in every class with Daryl, which is
So you really didn't care about education at all? No, I'm just I'm just asking because, again, I'm thinking about it from the listener's lens. So I'm thinking somebody who's trying to choose a career path, because a lot of college students who are becoming teachers also listen to this. So I'm just trying to see, what they're going through emotionally in college. But you didn't even really want to be in education. So let me not even ask you that question.
Yeah, I didn't want to be in education. And I realized when we had to get up in front of the class and start teaching lessons and doing those types of things. And I was like, I don't want to do this. This wasn't it for me. So I think maybe that part of it, when I realized, I was like, having to do that role play in Dr. M's class.
I remember that.
I think it was Dr. M.
Yeah, I remember you had to teach a lesson. We were first graders or something like that.
Yes.
And we had to teach a lesson on phonics.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember. So moral of the story, kids, don't choose a major based off of the person you're dating at the moment. And really pray about that thing and see where God is calling you. It's funny because I felt like I was called into education, I believe. And it's crazy because even when we were in school, I used to always say, I want to teach teachers how to teach. I just felt like that was one of the things I was seeing myself doing. I always knew I had presentation skills and would be able to present. And I just wanted to be good enough that I could help other teachers be great as well. Like, that literally have always wanted to do that. When people ask, do you want to be a principal someday? Do you want to be an administrator someday? I'd always like, no, I just want to teach teachers how to teach.
I do remember you saying that as well.
Right. So I don't know, that's so cool. So here's what I want to do, because obviously you chose social work. You felt called to it. You're really passionate about it. You were in love with it. You were a social worker for a long period of time. But recently you got to the place where you didn't want to work anymore. Like, that's kind of where I want to land, because there are teachers who had that same exact story. I'm so passionate about teaching. I have this why. I feel like God called me to this work. I feel like this is how I'm going to make my impact on the world. And I get into it. And, more than 50% of new teachers don't even make it past year 5. So I get into it and I realize there's something about it that is not serving me, or I feel, maybe sometimes I feel inadequate, or I feel like I'm not good enough. Or I feel like I'm not making the impact that I thought I was going to make. And this isn't for me. Let me try something else. So talk to me more about how you were feeling when you said, I don't want to work anymore, or I don't want to do social work anymore, or do this. You talk about it.
Yeah, and I think you hit it right there on the nail when you talked about being burnt out and not feeling adequate and not feeling like you're doing enough. I remember a specific client where I just felt like I wasn't doing enough for her. I mean, it was always the yelling, the screaming, the cursing at me, and I think that's what caused me to say, I think enough is enough. Like, am I helping? Am I doing anything, right? And I really felt like I wasn't making an impact or a difference anymore with that. So
how many years were you working until that happened?
And it's so interesting, 5 years. So I hit that 5-year mark and I was like, maybe I'm not making the best impact. Maybe I'm not, an adequate social worker as I thought I was. So
and teachers, that can happen too as well. Like, they're teaching for 5 years and then they have this one class. Everybody has that class. They have this one class that they're like, I'm not made for this anymore. These students are different. I've been hearing it all year. I don't know what the pandemic did to these kids. These students are different. I can't engage them. I'm not built for this anymore. This work isn't for me anymore. Like, those questions really start to surface.
Yeah.
What was it for you that said, you know what, let me try something else?
Yeah. So what made me try something else, we had Joel, and then I was like, maybe I can go home and be with him. Because again, like I said, that client, that mom, she really just made me feel like I couldn't do it anymore. I didn't feel, again, I wasn't the social worker that I thought I was. And so I said, I'll go home for a minute and kind of take a break and take care of Joel, take care of my children who really love me, who think I'm the best mom in the world, And so someone who, the kids who think I am, like I said, the best mom and I'm adequate enough. And so I said, I'll go home and be with the kids. And so I think, that's where I was. I felt that I just wasn't doing the work anymore. I wasn't the best.
Yeah. So when you made that decision to leave your job, said, although this is something I felt like I'm called to, I'm over it at this point. I'm gonna leave my job. Looking back on it, do you think it was the right decision?
No, I don't think it was the right decision because I'm back at it now, right? So I'm doing the work. I'm back. It's so funny because I just started back 3 weeks ago, back literally back where I started.
So take me through that journey, because so many people have those same feelings. Literally to that jump off point where they say, I'm gonna leave. Fast forward 6 months, now you're looking back and saying, I should have stayed, right? So tell me more about that though. Like when you left, where did you go and what happened next?
Sure. So when I left, I went to the hospital and...
Did you want to do that previously?
Yeah, I think we spoke about that before. So I had 3 major like social work positions I wanted to do. And I think I said I would like to do school social work, I'd like to do child protective services, and then I would do medical social work. And those were the 3 major areas that I wanted to do social work in. And so when I left, I was like, okay, maybe I can try medical social work. Maybe the patients there will think I'm enough, you know? And
okay, because you were doing child protective services.
I was doing child protective services,
for 5 years.
For
and
5
then
years.
you said, maybe if I go to the medical field, I would be treated better.
Yes.
I would feel
Yes.
like I'm adequate. I'll feel more fulfilled.
Yeah.
When you got there, what was that experience like?
So when I got to the hospital, I was the only social worker. And so I'm the only social worker on the floor. There's no team. There's no, eating lunch with your coworkers or going checking in with everyone. You're the social worker there.
Okay.
There's no flexibility. You got to be there, because if you're not there, then there's no social worker. So.
And how does that compare, just for the people that are listening, how does that compare to where you were before with CPS?
Yeah, sure. So with CPS, we have, I would say, 10 in-home social workers on that given day. So you're not the only social worker there who needs to, you're not on call, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So at the hospital, you're on call, you're the social worker, you're that person. If they're looking for a social worker, it's you. If you're running late, they're looking for you. And so, compared to the county where I left, where the flexibility was there, if I'm running a little behind, I had my clients, and so my clients knew that I'm on my way,
I was like, don't try to clean it up for the podcast. If you run a little behind, you mean like when you're late.
If I'm running a little behind.
All the time. Nah.
Listen, if I'm running a little behind, then, my clients can understand that, I'll call them up and say I'm on my way. But when you're at the hospital, people are ready to be discharged. Their patients are ready to be discharged. The hospital moves so fast where you're not able to be late. Like, you take your 30-minute lunch and you make sure you're back, And so there was no flexibility there. You're working by yourself. And so that was a dark place for me at the emergency department.
And it's emergency. We're going to get to that in a second.
Right.
But you even talked about like coworkers. Like you didn't have a team when you were, at the hospital.
Right.
When you were at CPS, what was your team like? What was the vibes
Loved
of
my
the team?
Listen, we loved our team at the county. Everyone held everyone accountable, If we needed anything, we call up our coworker. I need you to go do a field visit for me. I need you to go grab lunch for me. So we were a team. We were family. Sam, our children grew up together, and go to birthday parties together and that type of thing. So we became a family there at the county, whereas in the hospital, like I said, you're the only social worker there. And so it's it was very much a dark place for me. And again, I was in the emergency department. And so even just seeing the patients come in and out, and we had to discharge so fast, where with the county, I'm able to at least build a rapport, a relationship with the patients or with the clients.
I think that was crazy. So I didn't mean to cut you off if you were still going. Were you still going?
No, I'm okay.
I don't want to be rude. But I think that's what was crazy when you were telling me that, because when you have CPS, you have clients for days, weeks, months, whatever, you can really work with them. But you were like at the hospital, especially in the emergency department, people will come in, give them, you can talk more about it, but you come in and boom, boom, and then discharge. Like what would it be like at the hospital with the amount of time you're spending with the patient? Yeah.
So with the hospital, they're not necessarily say money hungry, but they're all about the money. And so you have to see a certain amount of patients within the hour. So I want to say it was like 5 or 6 patients within the hour. Like you had to be in and out with them, discharge them because the other one's waiting in the waiting room. And so just kind of that pace, giving them resources, not really connecting with them, but just giving them a piece of paper and letting them know, hey, look, go down to the shelter, or here's a therapist in the area. So not really building that relationship.
Yeah.
And so
you felt like, obviously you just said it, but just to make it clear, plain, when you were working at CPS, you were working in your purpose, in your calling, building these relationships, really helping people. You felt like when you transitioned to the hospital, it was all going through the motions. You was going through the motions. Come, here's these resources, take this. Before we get to the next point, I just have to let you know that my book, 99% Human, 1% Amazing, right now is free. All you have to do is cover the cost of shipping and I'll get it directly to you. So check the link in the description below. If you're receiving value from this video, you'll probably love the book. Did you see, well, I know you did, but I'm asking for them. Did you see any like repeat customers, if you would, or repeat clients in the hospital?
Oh yeah, and the reason is I think we saw those repeats because we weren't able to get to them, you know, so they would just come back in. It was kind of like a Band-Aid. We put on the Band-Aid and they would just come back in because the Band-Aid came off. And so yes, whereas in the county, we never, sorry, not never, but we'd hardly ever see those people who are coming in or come back in because we were able to work with them a little bit longer.
Yeah, because you're working with them and actually like helping them find resources and helping them go, you know, in-home intensive care with them. Sorry, I don't know if we said, but your emergency department, what were they coming in for? Like, what were you doing for them?
Yeah, so there were numerous things that they were coming for. A lot of them would come in for substance use. Some of them would come in because of manic episodes. Some of them would come in because of suicidal, you know, they'd be on suicide ideation. A lot of them, I mean, it just varied. There were so many things all at one time.
And your repeat customers, I remember you telling me were like, not customers, like I'm gonna stop calling them customers, but your repeat patients were like a lot of times substance abuse people, right? Where they would abuse substances, you come in, pump their stomach or tell them to, you know, sleep it off, give them some resources, put them back on the street. Next day, they're back in, they drunk again, you know, drunk and blacked out. So it sounds like you felt like, what am I even doing here? What impact am I making on the, you know what I'm saying? Like when I was with CPS, I know I'm helping to reunify families because that's what you were doing. Now I'm here at the hospital and I'm just, all right, let me get this guy some codeine and send him out this way. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
So, and then what were the hours like? Because you mentioned flexibility.
Yeah, so I was working 12-hour shifts. So I did 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. You know, you'd put the kids down for bed. I'd see them in the morning for an hour and a half.
Yeah, maybe just to get them ready to go to school.
Right, and it was nice, I would say, because I would have those 3 days off, but it was still, you know, baby girl would still be in school. You know what I'm saying? And so it wasn't.
Well, so what'd that feel like from like a mom standpoint?
Yeah, so I didn't feel, again, even that, adequate enough. Here we go again, because, you know, we'd hear Niall say, Mommy, again, you know, you're working again tonight. And then she would have curriculum night at school, and I wasn't able to attend that because I was working on the nights that she had curriculum night. So whereas with the county, again, you know, just comparing the two of them, you know, 5:30, I would get off of work. You know, it was very flexible. Whereas with the hospital, no, these are your set times, and you know, if curriculum night falls on a Monday, okay, you got to be at work, you know? And so it was very much harder for that point too, so.
Yeah, plus weekend shifts.
Plus the weekend shifts, oh yeah. Sundays, picnic.
That you missed the church picnic and just, So the reason why I'm bringing up all of these to our remembrance, I know we try to put that in the back, but because, let me just recap again. You were working CPS. You're like, I'm tired of this. I'm frustrated. I'm burnt out. I can't do this anymore. This is annoying. This is frustrating. I'm over this. I'm going to the hospital. The grass is greener on the other side, right? Like, I'm going to the hospital. It's better over there.
Right.
And I'm gonna be honest. Like, you were excited. You were bragging about the hospital.
I was excited. Yes,
you were telling everybody, I'm going to work for the hospital. Nael was our daughter, our 4-year-old Nael. She was telling people, my mommy's a doctor.
And keep it going, baby girl.
Mom, you was at the hospital, right? You were excited telling people at church, but you were really getting excited, right, about working at the hospital. You actually got there, and you're like, oh man, I don't have a team. Oh man, these hours are crazy. I can't come in late if I wanted to. I have to work weekends. I'm missing stuff. I'm missing time with my kids, my family. You come home driving late at night, driving on the wrong side of the road.
Yep.
Can't see at night.
Okay.
but for real, like, feeling really, I remember the thing that you told me that did it for you, where you was like, I really can't do this anymore. But tell us about maybe one of your last days when you walked in to the room that you did not know what that room was? I'm trying not to give it away. You know what I'm talking about?
I remember exactly what you're talking about.
Tell us about that. Because I think that'll solidify for people really the trauma that you experienced in the hospital.
Yeah. So there's a resource room that we have there at the hospital where, you can go and get clothes and shoes and things like that for your patients and send them on their way once they're discharged. So I went to the security guard and asked him, and this is what I'm saying when, you're the only social worker there. There's no team to kind of even, hey, don't go in that room. You know what I'm saying? Like you're kind of learning as you go. And so I went to the security guard and asked him for the key, and he's like, yeah, here's the key. Go down to the resource room and go get whatever you need. So I walk into the resource room to go and get the items that I needed. And there was a man in there. He was on the stretcher, no blanket or anything. He was just had his eyes closed. So, I went and nudged him a little bit. Hey, are you sleeping? The guy was ice cold. So I'm like, oh, yeah. He's dead, So I walked in on a dead person. No blanket or anything. He was just there in the closet.
That's
traumatized.
Wild. No
traumatized,
blanket. He was naked?
No, he wasn't naked. He wasn't naked. I don't know if did I tell you he was. I don't know if I told you he was naked.
I'm just checking. I'm just
sure.
No.
He wasn't naked. He had on his clothes. He had on his clothes. They didn't have a blanket on him.
Because you keep saying you had no blanket on him. I'm just all right.
No.
Better stop. Watch the mind. All right. So.
So walked in on that. So that was traumatizing for me. That didn't solidify it, but that was like okay. One of the things that.
Yeah, because you didn't last much longer than that.
No.
And then you quit that job. How long did you work there?
3 months.
Okay. And then you ended up coming home.
Yeah.
And being a stay-at-home mom for a little bit. How was that?
Joelle and I loved it. I loved it. I enjoyed it. We would do library time. We would go down to mom and me classes. But the biggest thing was I kind of made the mistake of not having any insurance for the children. And so I remember when I had just quit, and I think you had just open enrollment had closed for you. Yeah. And so we had gone without insurance for until I started back working.
Yeah. Did you want to go back to work? Just curious.
I did. Yeah. I wanted to go back to work. I wanted to stay home with Joelle, but I did want to go back to work. I felt like I had that itch again. Like I felt like I wasn't doing what God had called me to do. Like social work, I feel like is my passion. Like that's my purpose. And I feel like God called me to do that. And so when I'm at home with Joelle, I loved it, love him. We loved library time and story time and, our walks in the neighborhood and things like that. But there was nothing like helping, and fulfilling my purpose. I just feel like I wasn't fulfilling that purpose. And I was getting that itch again to go back and do the work. So, yeah.
So you reapplied to the county.
Reapplied.
Got accepted, started working again. But two things I want to hit. One, the insurance thing is real. So when you said that you left your job, it's cool that we're blessed to be in a position where we were kind of prepared for this. But I want listeners to think that, to really hear what happened, right? You were not happy where you were. 5 years, done, ready to go. You did. You ended up going somewhere where you felt less fulfilled than you were where you initially were. And you're like, this is worse than I was, and I don't like this. I want to go. You ended up leaving and being able to stay at home. Kind of luckily, we put ourselves in a place financially where we were able to have a couple of months where you could stay home and kind of still be able to sustain with the expenses at home. But even then, we ended up having to lose the insurance because the kids were on your insurance. And then that was December.
Yeah.
So they got sick every other week, and now we're paying out of pocket to go to the doctor's office, and I think people don't necessarily think about that side of it when they're in the moment thinking of I got to leave because they're thinking I'm frustrated right now, I'm annoyed right now, I'm stressed right now, I'm burnt out right now. Let me go. And sometimes when they leave, they find themselves in a worse situation than where they were initially. I don't think that there's anything wrong with leaving. I told you at the beginning, I want people to live the life they choose, not the life they're forced to settle for. Build as many skills as you can to live the life that you choose, even if that's not a life in education. But I need you to make an informed decision so that you don't end up in a worse situation. That's why I created this this questionnaire, if you would, to ask yourself these questions you need to ask before you decide whether or not to quit. So I'm gonna do this. I know your social work. Thank you for telling us your story, by the way. I think that was helpful. And I was listening through the lens of an educator, and I feel like there's so many connections. I know that people that are listening were like, wow, I experienced the same thing, as a teacher. But I want to ask you these questions. I want you to try to put yourself back in the frame of mind that you were in before you went to the hospital. So you're at CPS, frustrated, right? But you haven't gone to the hospital yet. I want you to answer these questions before you decide to quit. Number one, has your dream changed?
It has not changed.
Okay.
No, I would say it has not changed.
It hasn't changed.
No.
You still wanted to impact the world through social work. Right? You still wanted to be that nice social worker that you always wanted and never had.
Right.
Right? You still wanted to help reunify those families. You did have a challenging client, but you still wanted to kind of make a difference in those families' homes. So your dream hadn't changed.
Right.
Okay, next question. Were you prevented from operating in your zone of excellence? If I haven't talked to you about this, your zone of excellence is the thing that makes you unique, the things that set you apart, what you do amazingly that other people are stand in awe of. Like it comes naturally to you, but it's amazing to everybody else. When you were at CPS, were you being prevented from being excellent?
I don't think I was being prevented from being excellent because I feel like that came from within.
Yeah.
So I don't think I was being prevented from.
Okay. So there was like your supervisor wasn't like, no, you can't. So say what's some of your strengths you think when you're dealing with families?
Building a rapport, building a relationship with my families. I guess a strength and a weakness would be, working after hours, just to make sure that they have what they need.
I mean, it's not a job interview right now.
Right.
I'm just asking.
Listen. Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so let's go with your building rapport, right? So you weren't in a situation where your supervisor was like, listen, I don't want you talking to the moms like that, keep it to 5 minutes and get on. You get too much in their personal business. Like it wasn't like there was somebody telling you can't do your job the way that you like to do it.
Right.
There wasn't.
No, it was not.
Okay. So that's what I mean by operating in a zone of excellence. Sometimes for teachers, their zone of excellence may be like the way they build relationships as well. And they may have an administrator or a team that's saying, oh, no, I don't want you to do that. You can't eat lunch with the students. You can't, they'll say things that make you feel like, but that's what makes me great.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no.
So there was nobody else stopping you? Okay.
No.
This last question. Are the frustrations, the things that were frustrating you, the things that were making you annoyed and frustrated, are they out of your control to fix? Meaning, no matter how much better you got, no matter how hard you tried, there's nothing you can do to make your frustrations any better.
No, I would say that my frustrations, like I said, I was in control of that. I would say no.
So this is the quitting questionnaire. So your dream hadn't changed. You're not prevented from working from your zone of excellence, and the frustrations are not out of your control. That means that's not a situation that you should leave.
Right.
And as you're looking back on it, it makes sense. Right? It's not a situation that you should leave because it can get better. You're still working in what makes you great, your zone of excellence. You still have the same dream. And if you were to improve, if you were to tweak, if you were to get a little better in this or a little better in that or do this differently, because I remember you used to complain about having to turn in your paperwork or your notes, you called them. If you were like, man, let me figure out how to use AI to help me or ChatGPT, whatever. Like there's something that you could do to make this frustrating thing less frustrating.
Right.
Now, if you look at that with the hospital, has your dream changed? No, you still wanted to affect people, but you weren't able to live that dream.
Right.
Because when you were working CPS, you felt like you were able to really impact those families and help grow them. When you worked in the hospital, you feel like you were just going through the motions. So my dream didn't change, but you weren't fulfilling your purpose.
Right.
Right? Are you prevented from working in your zone of excellence when you were at the hospital? Yeah. You just said your relationship building was your biggest strength. Now you get to the hospital, you got 6 minutes with a client.
Right.
The thing that makes you feel the most fulfilled, the thing that makes you an amazing social worker is the thing that you're not able to do anymore.
Right.
That's super frustrating. And then lastly, are the frustrations out of your control to fix? What are you frustrated about? The hours? That's out of your control. You can't change that. You work 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
You work some weekends. You can't change that. The isolation, the fact that you're not able to be with your team, is that out of your control? Yeah, because you can't hire 9 more social workers. Right. You are the one that's on that shift. It's just you. So the things that were frustrating you are out of your control to fix. So at that point, it does make sense to leave that curious. So you see how going through those questions kind of help. And I just want to urge and encourage people to ask themselves those questions before they decide to throw in a towel, because I don't want them to end up in a worse situation. Like, I don't want them to say, man, I should have never left, because now we don't have insurance. Oh man, my kid's sick. I can't afford this. Or I don't have 6 months salary saved up. I can't just stay home, where these bills are gonna come from.
Right.
There's so many people that like, man, I'm done with education. Teachers don't get paid enough. We need to do more. And like, they'll go and do something else. I'll go tutor. I'll go teach online. Some people end up loving it. Some people don't. They're not making as much money as they would. Don't thought they would. Some people go start their Etsy store, or they try to go, be a content creator. And I'm not knocking, but they do for real. Like, because I asked them in the comments when they say, I'm leaving education. I'm like, what are you doing now? I'm selling stickers on Etsy. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, is it more, lucrative? Not yet, but it's, you know what I'm saying? Like, but sometimes people get frustrated in the moment and they leave and they're like, man, so now I'm selling these stickers on Etsy and I'm making $700 a month and had no insurance. Like, it's, all I'm saying is, I want people to chase their dreams, absolutely. But I want you to make sure you know what your dream is. I love that you always came back to your dream. Your first dream was that you wanted to be that social worker that you never had. You wanted to be kind, and you wanted to make an impact to the world, help reunify these families. That was happening at CPS. You then went to the hospital, and that wasn't happening, and you were feeling unfulfilled. And you're like, I gotta go. Like you said, scratch this itch. I gotta go do something. I can't do this. I don't like this. I'm feeling unfulfilled. I'm just breathing to death. I'm not making an impact on the world that I wanna make. You quit that job, you staying home. You love your family, love both your kids. You're working with them. You love being at home, going to mommy in the park and stuff like that. But then you still felt unfulfilled because you weren't making an impact on the world. Like, when God puts a dream in our heart and God calls us to make a specific impact, when we're not doing that thing, we will never feel fulfilled. So running from it doesn't necessarily help. So now that you are back at the hospital, I'm sorry, back at the hospital. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to want to cause no trauma.
Back at the county.
You're back at CPS, back at the county. Looking back over this whole kind of like journey, what would your recommendation be to somebody who's in the valley of decision, trying to decide whether to quit or whether to stick it out?
Yeah, so I would definitely recommend, just like you said, I love that, answering those questions and going over those questions. But on the other side of it also, I would just try to, I guess not necessarily try to relocate, but I know for me, I think we were talking about that today as well.
We were, yeah.
Just trying to create a different scene or different scenario. I know for me, I'm at a whole new office now. Well, I'm able to go to different offices around the county. So there's 4 or 5 of them. And so I'm able to go to a different a different office. And within that office, I feel like I'm able to breathe again. I feel like I want to do this again. I'm not in the same environment. So I removed myself from the environment where I felt like I was, not adequate. And there was a lot of chatter and then the gossip and then just the office in itself. It was just, I wanted a new environment. So I went over to the other office, and in there I'm able to focus. I'm able to, when I say get my work done and go home to the house, that's what I do, go on to the house afterwards, And so I would definitely recommend just trying to figure out what you can do within the job itself before trying to leave. And like I said, for me, it was definitely removing myself and just put myself in a different environment to see if that would help me. So just trying to outweigh all the options before you're actually trying to make that jump and move.
No, yeah, I love that. I think that's super cool. And again, listening to it from an educator lens, that could be a different building.
Right,
a different school, a different grade span, right? If your license allows. But sometimes people are like, I'm over this, I gotta go, I'm done with education. Pause. Maybe we can try the school down the block. For me, it's funny because I've always taught in Title I schools, from the beginning. I did Teach for America, and then they sent me to Mississippi for that summer. And then I came to Huntsville, Alabama, taught there for 3 years, super failing school. Then I transitioned to Charlotte, North Carolina, another super family school that I was working at. And that was like year 4 or 5? 4. It was year 4. Wow, that's crazy. It was right about the same time. And the cool thing is, I had the wherewithal to know that, I use words sometimes.
The wherewithal, okay.
I had the wherewithal to know that my calling was still in education. So I was really frustrated at the end of that year, and I was thinking about leaving, but I knew that I didn't want to leave the profession. At year 4. At the end of year 1, I wanted to leave the profession. I was like, this isn't for me. I'm not good at this. But at the end of year 4, I was like, all right, I've seen some successes. I'm feeling some frustrations. Maybe I should try a different population. Again, I've always done Title I. I was like, I've always done Title I public school. I've always done failing schools. I've always done that. So I said, maybe let me try a different population and see. So I applied at the charter school, not too far away. And I really didn't get a different population. I thought I was going to. I thought I was going to get a different population, but I didn't. But just the structure of the charter school was different than the structure of the public school. At that school, we had a lot more autonomy. At the public school, I felt like they were treating me like a cookie cutter. That's the phrase I use all the time. It was cookie cutter. We weren't really aligned. But I ended up going to a charter school, and I was like, whoa, I like this. I ended up becoming teacher of the year, in that charter school. So I was teacher of the year once in the public school in Alabama, teacher of the year there in the charter school. And I was like, well, maybe that was the shift that I needed. Working throughout that school 2-3 years, then I accelerated to, the admin that I am now. And then I transitioned recently again to the new school, the one I'm at now, because I said, you know what? As I think Niall was born, she was 1. And I said, I want to work at a school where I want to bring my kids. That's literally what I said. Again, I've always worked in Title I schools, always worked in, not that I wouldn't want to send my kid to a Title I school, but the schools that I was at, I wouldn't want my kid to be there. I'm just being honest, unless they were in my classroom, but I wouldn't want my kid to be there. There were just things that they did not need to be exposed to. Just stressors that they did not need to deal with. So I was like, I wanted my child to be in a school. I want to work in a school where I want to bring my child. And that's the school where I am now, And so I made another shift, another transition, and I love it. So my advice just to somebody thinking about making that switch is, it doesn't always have to be the profession, right? It doesn't always have to be the profession. Sometimes it's just that change. Maybe I'll try a different grade. Maybe the kids, as we grow and change and mature, sometimes our interests and passions grow, change, and mature as well. You can leave college and say, I love working with kindergartners, right? But then 4 years down the line, you're like, oh, kindergartners get on my nerves. Like, it's real, it's possible. Right. And you can say, let me try 4th grade. Right. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. Like, sometimes it's a different grade span. Sometimes it's a different school, public, charter, private. Sometimes it's a different demographic. Sometimes it's a different side of town. Like, there's so many different ways, so many different vehicles of education, I would say. So you don't necessarily just have to get sold out on the one that you're in. I would definitely suggest trying that before you jump ship in total.
Yeah, and that's similar to a social worker as well. There's so many, we say social workers can do anything. And in social work, you can work with any kind of population, and so same thing. So I appreciate you saying that, where, you can try to get, go to another population, because same thing with social workers, with us too. I would definitely recommend that. I don't know if it'll work because I came back to the county, but I went to work with a medical population, or I went to the emergency department to figure that out. I didn't definitely just jump ship and leave social work altogether. So,
But one thing I want to say to that I'm super proud of you for is taking the leap and taking the risk.
Yeah.
And I don't want it to necessarily contradict everything that we've been saying so far, but I do think that there's power in being strong enough to just try something. A lot of people say that, life is short. And I think to some regard it is, but I always like to say that life is long. Like, life is long enough for you to make different decisions and grow from them and still be okay, right? Like, life is long enough for you to try going down this path, not sure if you like it, try something else, and go down a different path. Like, life is long enough. Sometimes we feel like, life is short, and we interpret that to mean I have to stick with this decision. This is the decision I made. This is what I'm gonna do. And even to that, I always say, you don't have to be a slave to your 17-year-old self. Like, imagine if I never went to Argentina. You'd have been a teacher because you're 17 years old.
I probably would not have been a teacher.
Your 17-year-old self would be like,
No.
I'm in love with this man. I'm gonna do whatever
my
he
goodness.
does. I'm gonna graduate with this education degree.
Listen.
But nah, like for real. A lot of people choose your major at 17, 18, 19 years old. Your 17, 18, 19-year-old self said, I'm gonna do this thing. You at 23, 24, 25 may have a different interest.
That's true.
You don't have to be a slave to your 17-year-old self. It's okay to make a pivot. Life is long enough for you to make a pivot, switch, try something new, fail, improve, get better, and keep going. Like life, you know what I'm saying? Like life is long enough to make tweaks and make changes and make adjustments. So I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
You got it. Look how much you've been through in the last 6 months. You working at CPS, didn't like it, quit, went to the hospital, didn't like it, but experienced it to know I don't like working at the hospital, quit that job, so try to stay at home mom, experience that to know I don't want to be a stay-at-home mom, and then you end up going back to work. That all happened in the last 6 months. Like life is long.
Yeah.
Life is long. You are strong enough to make tweaks and adjustments and rebound and to grow. So I'm proud of you for that. And for anybody that's kind of thinking about that, definitely ask yourself these questions. We'll link that down in the show notes, the questionnaire, but also it is okay to be brave enough to try something new. You know?
I'd say.
You'd say? Well, I appreciate it, honestly. We have on these kindness shirts. Make sure that you are being kind to people.
Yes.
We wear matching shirts sometimes. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see it. If you're listening on a podcast, we have on shirts that are matching that say kindness is free. We just want to encourage you to be kind to the people you come in contact with. From a social worker, from an educator, kindness is free. Share love, spread love, be kind to those around us. All right? All right, well, I appreciate you being here today.
You're welcome.
You got it. Listen, new teacher, big impact. Make sure that you are positioning yourself to have a big impact on student achievement data without burning out, without being unsupported, and without changing who you are. You've got this, and I've got you. See you on the next one.